In the moment of silence, I'll ask Ms. Lawrence to do roll call, please.
Mr. Griffith?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Ms. Hauk? Ms. Hauk? Ms. McDermott? Ms. McDermott? Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Radel?
Here.
Ms. Sedman?
Here.
Mr. Schnee? And Mr. Schnee? Mr. Urban?
Here.
Mr. Vogt?
Here.
Ms. Hauk?
Here.
Ms. McDermott? Mr. McGinley?
Present?
And Ms. McDermott, are you out there?
I'm here, but I can't.
Sorry. All present.
Okay. We have a motion. Any additions or deletions to the work session agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Harry Haas here. I have an addition. I'd like to hear from management the results of the exit interview for the Deputy Director of Elections. I think it'd be very prudent going forward, and if need be, we can have an executive session for that.
Repeat what you want. You want report of? Mr. Haas, would you repeat that, please?
I would like to hear a review of the exit interview that management held with the Deputy Director of Elections. I think it's very prudent given the situation we're facing.
Okay.
And if need be, we can move that to executive session.
Mr. DeLuca or Ms. Corkmore? Is that something we should proceed with an executive session?
Personnel issue, so I figure it's probably an executive.
If there is information regarding a specific employee or former employee, then absolutely it would be done in executive session. I don't know to what extent the county manager would discuss that. I don't know, but regardless, it would be something that would occur at an executive session.
Okay.
Sure,
Well,
executive
Mr. Haas, if that's the situation, we'll have that before next week, the next 2 weeks meeting from tonight. We'll have that as part of an executive session. And I think we'll probably have something else that night too. So we'll make time for that and whatever else we have to do. Okay?
Right. But I did ask for this quite some time ago, so I wish it were on the agenda tonight, but thank you.
Yeah, I think you had it on 2 weeks ago. I think I remember you mentioned that, I think. All right. Anyone else? Motion to adopt?
Mr. Chairman, I have Attorney Cynthia Vullo available if there's any questions regarding the recent arbitration award.
Okay. Okay. Let's have that Attorney Vullo. We'll put that on first if we can, because I think she's on the line.
Yes, she is.
Do we have a motion to adopt the work session with the information from Attorney Vullo?
So moved, Walter.
Mr. Griffith, do we have a second?
Second, Chris.
Mr. Perry, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, any abstentions? None heard. Motion carried. Ms. Corcoran, you want to introduce that with Attorney Vullo?
Yes, Attorney Vullo was the county's arbitrator in the recent arbitration involving the assistant district attorneys and the assistant public defenders. I asked her to be available if county council had any questions.
Attorney Vullo, you're on the line?
Yes. Hello, all.
Okay. Hello all. Questions for Attorney Vullo? Anyone in regards to the arbitration award?
Mr. McGinley?
Yep.
Had I known Mr. Volo was going to be on the call for the work session, I would have read the arbitration award more closely. I did not know that, so I'm kind of ill-prepared to ask questions at this
Well, we
time.
can certainly add it to our next work session without a problem. So you'll have an opportunity to read that then.
Well, for myself, I think that would be appropriate for myself, but I don't know how the other council members feel.
Well, I don't know either, but here's your opportunity to, yeah, if anybody has questions or anybody has thoughts about when they want to speak to Ms. Attorney Volo, please let us know now.
Attorney Volo, this is Sheila Seidman. I wanted to ask you, could you capsulize it very succinctly? It was a long decision.
Yes, yes, sure. So this bargaining unit was, as Attorney Kokomo indicated, the assistant district attorneys and the assistant public defenders, and then also within the public defender office are 3 caseworkers that are in the unit. So the primary issues, as with most of these arbitrations, were wages and healthcare. In this arbitration, there was also an issue involving what's called Section 1620 rights, which is the rights of elected officers like the district attorney to hire, fire, and supervise their employees without impairment by language in a collective bargaining agreement. So with respect to, did you want me to give the actual wage increases that were awarded? I can go through them if you'd like.
There were a lot.
Yes. Well, what we tried to do was there was a group of employees in this unit that were much more underpaid, I'll call it, than others. And that group were the least senior ADAs and APDs, like the most recent hires. And I'd say from like those that have been there from like 1 to 5 years. So we tried to give them more of the increases than the others. So this unit consists of full-time ADAs and APDs and part-time ADAs and APDs, and then the 3 caseworkers are full-time. So the least senior full-time ADAs and APDs got more increases than the part-timers and the caseworkers, because compared to their counterparts in other third-class counties, they were the most underpaid. So that's why the award it's a little more complicated than most that you see, but it's because the full-time ADAs and APDs, we tried to give them, the least senior ones, we tried to give them more in increases. So for 2020, you'll see that, well, I'm sorry, for 2020, the award gives the all full-time employees a 2% increase for 2019 and a 2% increase for 2020. And then it brings the full-time ADAs and APDs up to a salary of $46,500 if they're still below that salary. And then instead of making the 2% the 2019 increase retroactive, and also the portion of the 2020 increase, they're given a lump sum, depending upon how many years of service. So if they had less than 5 years of service, they're getting $1,200. If they have more than 5 years of service, they're getting $1,800. And those lump sums are not quite the amount they would have received had the award been made retroactive to January 1st, the wage award been made retroactive to January 1st, 2019. So That's what the full-time ADAs and APDs got for 2020. And then part-time ADAs and APDs are receiving a 2% increase for 2019 and a 1.5% increase for 2020. And then those who are still under $33,000 are going to be brought up to that amount. And then in lieu of the retroactive payments, they're getting a lump sum of $750. And then caseworkers are getting a 2% increase for 2019 and a 2% increase for 2020. And then if they're still below $36,000, they're being brought up to that amount. And then their retroactive payment is a lump sum bonus of $1,000. The lump sum bonuses are not added to the base salary. Basically those lump sums constitute between a 50 to 80% of what they would have received had the award been made, the wage award been made retroactive. For 2021, the full-timers, if they had less than 5 years of service, they're getting a lump sum of $2,500 added to the base. And then if they have 5 years or more of service, they're getting $2,750 added to the base. And then there's an increase in their start salary to $49,000. And I'll just say what we were trying to do was to, by the end of this 4-year contract, to get the starting salaries of the ADA, the full-time ADAs and APDs, at least close to $52,000. And the reason for that is because there are other attorneys in the county that start at that salary, that start at $52,000. So by the end of this contract, I think we got them to close to $51,000. Okay, and then for 2021, part-timers are getting a 1.5% increase and an increase to their start salary. And caseworkers are getting a 2% increase and an increase to their start salary. And then for 2022, full-time ADAs and APDs are getting a 4.25% increase together with the increase to their start salary to, here it is, $51,083. And then part-timers are getting a 2% increase with an increase to their start salary, and caseworkers are getting a 2.25% increase with an increase to their start salary. So that's basically it for wages.
Cindy, what about the detectives weren't included? They're not part of their bargaining unit?
No, that's a separate unit.
Okay, that's what I.
Yeah. There are some minor provisions related to death penalty certification and licensed social workers. Unless anybody has any questions, I won't get into those. But then for healthcare, right now, currently under the expired contract, all of these employees are paying 10% of the premium cost. So with this award, effective September 1st of this year, they're all going to contribute 12% of the premium cost, except employees hired after September 1st of this year are going to contribute 15% of the premium cost. And then that'll stay the same until January of 2022, when all employees in this unit are going to contribute 15% of the premium cost for the HMO level of coverage. And then the last big issue, I'll call it, is as I said, the Section 1620 issue, which deals with the district attorney's right to hire, fire, and supervise her employees. And the county represents the district attorney in these in negotiations, and then in an interest arbitration like this. So the district attorney had asserted her rights, and so we, as part of the award, there was specific language put into various sections of the contract, like the seniority section, the grievance and arbitration section, and like the discharge and Discipline section, which basically says that the contract cannot interfere with the DA's right to hire, fire, and supervise her employees. So aside from that, there were some minor terms that were put into the contract. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions at this time?
Attorney Vullo, how many people are in the bargaining unit?
Let's see. I don't have the precise number today, but as of about 6 or 7 months ago, when we had the hearings, there were, let's see, 28, 31, 42, about 48.
48. What was the starting salary before this award?
For the full-time ADAs and APDs, it was $43,000. And there was evidence that from both the district attorney and the chief public defender testified they were having a hard time hiring ADAs and APDs at that salary. And then they were also having a hard time keeping them employed with the county at that salary.
Attorney Vullo.
Yes.
That salary, if somebody's on a criminal case and working 70 or 80 hours a week in either office, there's no overtime for those people, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? If you have other questions after you review it, and if you've listened to what Attorney Vullo said, we certainly can ask her to visit with us again in 2 weeks.
Mr. McGinley, could we get that document put up online for the public to see?
Oh, yeah. That's an award. That's no problem. That's a public document.
Right. So that way, when we have a discussion and there's public comment, the public could comment on it as well.
Sure. That can be done. No problem. Anyone else? Thank you, Attorney Vullo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Sweats? Or Mr. Pedri, excuse me. Division reports?
Hi, Council. Obviously, busy month, as you can see in the division report. One thing that I'm working on here is a ceremony for Friday. We'd like to have an outdoor, socially distant remembrance, a short remembrance for 9/11, for September 11th on this Friday, which marks 19 years from that fateful day. I can't believe, obviously everybody remembers where they were when they heard the news. And we think of the heroes who have fought these wars for the United States of America and not for the victims of 9/11. I'd ask all of council members and members of the public to join me. We're going to be holding it on the South Lawn at 8:46 a.m., which is the time of the first flight that hit the first tower. It will be a very short ceremony. I assume to be 10 to 15 minutes. Just a remembrance so that these people are always going to be remembered for what they did for us and for the blood they shed for our country. And with that being said, I would ask everybody to put that down in their calendars and hopefully join us. And I will also open myself up for questions on any county-related matter.
Questions on the division reports?
I have a couple of questions, Mr. McGinley. Under the first of all, is it possible under our monthly reports that we would get a document that lists our personnel changes for the month, so we don't have to wait until the newspaper prints it, so we know who was hired in August? If the manager could provide that to council prior to the newspaper getting it, that would be helpful. So at least we know what hires and people that have retired or moved on, and that personnel report would be helpful if the manager could provide that to council on his monthly report.
Those reports are provided to the public. Actually, they're on their website. They're usually posted by the 5th of the month.
I understand that, but I'm saying, could you provide that as your monthly report?
You want me to take something that's?
Well, I mean, it's
send that out to council when you post it.
Okay.
Manager
Oh,
Pedri.
okay.
All right.
I get it.
That's
okay, no,
fine.
I'm trying to figure it out.
That's fine.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you send
that's-
it out,
that's
then
fine.
whenever date's posted for the public, it'll be sent to council, and then everybody will have the information.
That was exactly what I was asking. Also on the under the elections report, 50 days for the ability to send out the ballots is coming up on Tuesday. I would like to know if the ballots are printed and ready to go yet. That's my first question. The second question in regard to elections is they're having a public display of the new voting machines for people to try out the machines, but they're going to do it in the courthouse. My question for, obviously with the emergency and the COVID, is why don't they do that in the voter warehouse where you could social distance and would not put people who work in the courthouse in any risk factors at all? And that way they would be separate from the traffic that's going through the courthouse. That would be, I think, would be more beneficial, seeing how we can't meet as a council in the courthouse. So I don't know why we're opening up the courthouse to regular meetings. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dave. No, go ahead.
To the first question. So the answer to the first question is no, we do not have the ballots printed at this point. That's because the state hasn't approved them. I would recommend all of county council members contact their state legislators to put the pressure on the Department of State to get us the ballots at this time. Their ballots have not been approved by the state at this point. Once the ballots are approved, we want to get them out as soon as possible. But there have been some challenges. I believe the Green Party has an issue right now with a couple of candidates that they're looking at, and some litigation regarding this matter. So the state hasn't approved the ballots. As soon as the ballots are approved, we will be moving forward with printing them. As for the courthouse, I mean, that was really an election board decision. I mean, like, obviously the courthouse is a public building. We'd be happy to host them here if they would like. I think you can fit a lot of people in there, and if it does get to be an overwhelming crowd, I'm sure we can move it somewhere else.
And I didn't realize that the state didn't approve the ballot, but I think once the state approves the ballot, then the board has to approve the ballot. So are they going to call a special session to approve the ballot?
No, you're incorrect on that, sir.
The state, the county board of elections doesn't have to approve the ballot to put their signature on it?
That's my understanding.
Because that was their issue that they had in the primary. If you remember, Keith Gould, the member of the board, was kind of annoyed at the fact that the ballots were printed and his name was put on it, and they never voted to approve the ballot.
I'll review that with the solicitor's office. Thank you for the input.
Yep, no problem. Let's see what my other notes are. I think that's probably the only thing I have on the elections, other than the issue that we raised at the election board meeting regarding the ability for the ballot to be printed with the wrong ward, and I couldn't get an answer from the solicitor as to what's the procedure to file a complaint. So hopefully I can get that from the Board of Elections at some point. But I think that's the only question that I have right now at the moment.
Thank you.
It's Sheila.
Go ahead.
David, I just want to tell you that, at least on my street, the response to Rock the County was very, very, very strong. They loved it. I was standing with several elderly people. They said they should do this more. How come they don't do this more? And it was great. I think you did, or whoever came up with that idea did a great job. And maybe we could have it more often.
Well, thank you, Sheila, for saying that. Obviously, Rock in the River was a major event last year. Over 6,000 people attended. Couldn't pull it off this year. But, a special thanks have to go out to all of our partners, the sponsors who were at that event. And, of course, Teddy Wample from our director of tourism. This was his baby. He pushed this thing along. The mayors of all the towns, Mayor Paul Roberts, Mr. Trzynski, Mayor Lombardo, Mayor Cassett, Mayor Brown in Wilkes-Barre. I'm missing Mayor Coughlin, Nanticoke. These places were great. The people invested us with open arms. I just got done coaching Little League baseball with my sons. And I do believe that we can do these types of events, outdoor events, if we do them safely, if we do them smart, and we social distance and wear masks, and we do the right thing. And I do think that these are the type of things that we as a community and we as a nation need to start doing again. So thank you for bringing that up, Sheila. it was a great win for the county. A lot of feel good moments.
Yes, it was.
Okay, Mr. Pedri, number 2.
No, Mr. McGinley, I have one more thing before if I
Oh, I
could
thought you
jump in
said
here
you were
quick.
done.
I did,
Okay.
but then as a
All right, go ahead.
the Department of Corrections in his report, we had a death at the prison in August that's not on the report. Is that accurate, or did I miss it?
There was a death in the prison in August.
That's not on the report.
Was it late July?
I think it was the first week of August.
It was Miss Balliot. Yes.
Right, but that's not in the report.
I don't have the report in front of me. I'm sorry, Walter.
Okay, so my that leads me to the question is, when there's a death at the correctional facility, does the Department of Corrections have to come in and do an investigation, or do they have to get a report on that?
They do get a report on that.
Okay. Is that a report accessible?
The extraordinary occurrence report.
No, the death report.
That
If
is
there-
the
if
report
an
that's on
inmate
the
was
report.
It is
done.
the extraordinary occurrence.
Yeah.
It's
I think that's what
extraordinary
the title
occurrence, Mr.
was.
Griffith.
Okay. So
And
is that
a death in the prison isn't something that we typically report in the monthly statistics. You're saying it wasn't reported. It's not. It never has been reported.
shouldn't it be reported?
We'll review that. We'll review that going forward. Obviously, I did tell council about that. The pretty much the hour it happened. But I understand your input.
Right. This is obviously the record of what happened at the prison for the month. So, and again, my question is, does the Department of Corrections issue a report of some fashion for whenever there's a death at the inmate of an inmate at the prison?
No, they don't.
They don't. They just get notified.
We will send them a report. Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And I think that is the last question I have. Thanks, Mr. McGinley.
Okay.
Appreciate your indulgence.
All right, no problem. Mr. Pedri, number 2? Application?
Number two is an application. I would refer this to the county's new planning and zoning director, Matt Jones, who I believe has been on the call. He wanted to make sure that council, he was here and he was ready to go. So he got dinner early. I said I would call him when he's going to be on. But he said no, he wants to be on for the full thing. So, let me turn this over to Mr. Jones, who is ready to go on this matter for you.
Mr. Jones, go ahead, please.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for your time. I'm Matt Jones. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director with the county. Before you, we are presenting a request that you adopt a resolution allowing our department to apply to the Pennsylvania State Department of Community and Economic Development for a grant to assist us with the cost of completing the Lackawanna-Luzerne Bi-County Regional Comprehensive Plan. State law number 247 requires all counties in Pennsylvania to approve a comprehensive plan and update that plan every 10 years. We are in the process of updating the comprehensive plan for Luzerne County and Lackawanna County jointly. We have already hired a consultant on that front, and the cost is $163,590 for the consultant to perform that work with us. And we had applied for a grant from DCED last year in the amount of $125,000, under the impression we had been given that there was a strong chance of award. But by April of this year, we learned from the state that those funds would not be awarded as they had been redirected for coronavirus relief programming. DCED is now telling us, our staff has been exploring paths for getting some kind of revenues to help us offset this state mandated effort, the cost burden to the county for performing this function, and have been beating the bushes with DCED and have come to find that a separate grant program has become available with good chance of award. And in discussions with the state, they tell us that $87,500 should be available to us if we apply for it under this program. Therefore, we're asking you to authorize us to make that application. The grant would require a 1-to-1 match. I can provide you details about the match. The long and short of it is that effectively only some of the match can be general revenues that we put towards paying the consultant, and some of the match can be in-kind, in-house staff labor and services performed, work performed by the staff within the planning and zoning department to help manage and pursue the development of this study along with the consultant. So it's our man hours contributing to in-kind services as part of our match to get this grant award. These are activities we are already intending to undertake. The bottom line is that the way the match would shake out, the way we're proposing the match would shake out, is that only $26,750 in Luzerne general funds would be needed to pay the consultant. We intend to pay the consultant anyway. Anyways, that amount would be required in the match in order to get from the state this $87,500 grant fund to help us offset the costs of this state-required effort to develop our comprehensive plan in 2020. So if there are any questions, I'm here along with Eddie O'Neill and John Petrini of the county staff. We'll be happy to answer any questions. But we wanted to put this to you as an opportunity to gain funding for Luzerne to help us defray the costs of this effort. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Jones?
I have some questions, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Haas.
So, sir, welcome to council. Harry Haas here. I just want to know if we can use the staff for the grant application or the grant management or both?
Both.
So both, okay. And then the second question is, what Act 13 funds could we use? Are they acceptable, appropriate use for this kind of grant application? Might be a question for Mr. O'Neill if he's there.
I am here. I would have to look into that before providing an answer to council on that. We can get back to you and look into that tomorrow.
Okay. Two other things then as well. What's the time frame for the grant? How soon do we have to act?
We want to strike while the iron's hot. We have a lead with the state who has been encouraging to us in recommending that we apply for the funds. We'd like to apply for them before they perhaps evaporate or go somewhere else like the last batch did, unfortunately, with coronavirus pandemic. So we're asking, we wanted to float this before you as soon as we could. This is the quickest we could get this to you. I just came on board a few weeks ago. John Petrini and my staff has done a lot of work to help prepare this item and to seek out this as a new source of funding that we could go for. So we are hoping to get your approval today to pursue this.
Okay. And the last question is then, so the state wants us to apply for state funds and use state grants to apply for state funds. Am I hearing that correctly?
We would be applying for this state source of revenue, this grant funding, through work that the Luzerne County Department of Planning and Zoning staff have already begun preparing the grant application in anticipation that you might allow us to submit that application on your behalf with your authority. We had been in preliminary talks with the state. Just, as normal staff work here at the county, in terms of us serving as county department staff, seeking out new funding opportunities that might be available to help offset the costs of this effort. So we're using county manpower to seek out the grant. We found this grant opportunity. Now we're going, with your approval, we would officially apply for the funds, and then theoretically the state would then award them to us, and it would help offset some of the county financial burden of pursuing this project.
Yeah, Mr. Haas, this is John Petrini with the Planning and Zoning Department. The labor hours are basically the staff of Lackawanna and Luzerne counties working in coordination with the consultants in the field doing field work, coordinating public hearings, public meetings, and assisting any of that, and then also preparing and applying for the applications for these grant opportunities. So that's how we're trying to use some of the funds for the labor match.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, anyone else? So now tonight it's on the work session, Mr. Jones. It won't be on the voting session until 2 weeks from tonight.
Oh, I see. My mistake.
Well, it's not a mistake. I just want you to know that
this evening, and hopefully in 2 weeks we can get your approval if you would be so kind. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Moving down to number 3, resolution authorizing the county manager to execute a lease agreement between the UFCW Community Credit Union and Luzerne County for Magisterial District Court 11-02-03. Ms. Crocomile or Mr. Pedri, whoever's offering the information.
Chairman McGinley, we do have the court administrator available to present the lease and take any questions.
Okay. Who's that, Mr. Highmarsh?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. McGinley. Good evening, council. How's everyone?
Go ahead.
We're asking council, we've been working with the Office of Law, Solicitor Kokomo and Solicitor Raddick to help us with a lease for 11-2-03 MDJ Hallacy. The current lease expired, and we're presenting to you tonight this master lease agreement, which will replace the expired lease. The old previous monthly rent was $2,760.42. The new rent moving forward for the next 3 years will be $2,812.50. So an increase of $52.08. The square footage meets the requirements set forth by the state. We've been in this location for many, many years. The landlord has worked with us to make some improvements, and we are requesting your support in renewing this master lease agreement.
Questions for Mr. Highmarsh?
Mr. McGinley?
Go ahead, Mr. Griffith.
Mr. Highmarsh, what did you say our lease payment currently is? I'm sorry, I missed that.
$2,760.42.
Oh, okay.
So
all right, so that's
$52.08 per month.
Right. Now that it says in the lease agreement that it's a 3-year lease with the option to renew.
Correct.
If the only problem is it will turn out to be almost a 6-year. It'll almost be a 5-year lease, I guess, if you took the options to renew on all of the terms. Correct?
That would be correct.
Yeah. So and I don't know how. At one point, I remember when we were county commissioner foreman and Mr. DeLuca was a solicitor, we were very reluctant to do long-term leases. And I understand we have the option to renew. I just wish that we could put some language in there to make it council's approval to renew it for each year rather than an automatic renewal. And I don't believe that language is in the contract, is it?
I do not believe so.
Okay. So, and then the other thing is the termination. Is there a termination clause in the lease anywhere? I did not see that, and I breezed through pretty quickly. So bear with me if I'm mistaken on that. If you would help me with that.
I do not believe so, but I could. I did not prepare the lease.
Paula?
Uh,
Paula, are you on?
Ms. Raddick, do you have your microphone muted possibly? It's according to what I can see on my screen, it says it's muted.
Yeah, I don't see a termination clause in there, and which gives me some
There's
concern.
Raddick now.
Am I unmuted now? I'm sorry.
Yes, you
There you
are.
go. Yep.
Okay,
Go ahead.
sorry about that. No, there is not a termination clause in there. We negotiated that lease with the council for the credit union. It was very, very similar to our old lease, and they did not raise the rent a substantial amount of money. So we, and by all accounts, everyone wanted to stay in that building from the court administration office. So we did not put that in there.
Yeah, and I don't foresee us leaving there. We've been there for quite some time. The concern that I have that if we did have that issue with the district down where Magistrate Malloy is as well, when we had to leave that facility. So I think a termination agreement or clause should be in the contract just for our own safety in case something comes up in 3 years that maybe we need to leave there and we don't end up, tied into a multi-year lease that we can't get out of. So,
well, in 3 years we can leave there. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but in 3 years we
that's
can
fine.
leave. Yeah.
Right, but we cannot leave there in less than 3 years without a termination agreement. We'd have to pay the full lease for 3 years, correct?
Correct. That's the minimum that they want, that
Right.
both sides agreed upon.
Correct. So that's why I'm saying I think a termination agreement is appropriate, even if we don't, just to protect the county in case we do decide that something happens that we want to leave there, that we would have that option to do that. That was my concern. So I appreciate, it's unfortunate that we waited since 2014 to get this moving along, but I appreciate us getting up to date on these leases. And I know there's a lot of them out there, so I appreciate the work to get it done. But I just think that the lease agreement should be a little bit more friendly for the county to give us a termination ability.
But the advantage to 2014 to now, there has not been an increase in the rental. So that's
yep, I understand that.
That's a plus for us, that part of it.
Sure. But
Anyone else?
we still should have a termination agreement for both parties.
If not, we're moving down to number 4, which is discussion regarding the Budget and Finance and Audit Committee recommendation for selection of the auditing firm for the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2020, which is the current calendar year. There is a short narrative that was accompanied this agenda item. Members of the committee, Mr. Griffith, Ms. Hauk, and Ms. Radel, and myself. Questions for the committee or any member? Also, every council person got the electronic RFP information that came from the 2 concerns or firms that were recommended here. So you have that information that was sent to you. If you want further information, that's what we had from those different firms. Any questions?
Yes. What caused the difference between the committee in terms of pros and cons?
Anybody would like to from the committee?
Go ahead, Linda.
Okay. Well, Sheila, we had pretty good interviews with all of the firms, and it came down to basically the 2 firms that you saw that we tied in recommendations. One of them had done our audits for 4 years before. They're familiar with the county, and they were fine. They did a fine job. They came in at a time when we were in a real mess, and our audits were consistently late, and there were a lot of issues with the audits. Not their fault. Okay. my feeling, my personal feeling for recommending the other group was that they would be another fresh set of eyes. And I think the reason for the charter requiring us to go to a new auditor at least every 4 years, if not sooner than that, to change auditors, is to have a fresh set of eyes on the books and not just to bring in people who are familiar with us and are going to look at the same thing that they've looked at before. That for me was one of the big points that I felt was a very competent firm. Not that they all weren't, but I thought it was important to have a fresh set of eyes again on the books, because when we brought in Clifton Larson Allen in the last round, they picked up some things that I thought were very important to have noticed, and it's improved the county financial operations to have that perspective too. I don't think it would hurt us at all to go another with a different firm for the next couple of years, and then maybe start bringing somebody back who's been here before. The other thing is that the firm that I was in favor of as my first choice also gave us, I believe, a 3-year same price deal. And I thought that was important also to hold the price firm for 3 years. I thought that was a selling point.
Linda, are they all from Luzerne County?
No, they're not. But also, Clifton Larson Allen was not from Luzerne County either. And I don't think that has to be a factor when we're talking about the audit. I don't think that needed to be a factor at all, because a lot of them do the work virtually, and I think it is good to have a company that is aware of what's going on in other places and not necessarily in the hometown. Again, it's not a knock against the either company or any of the companies that we interviewed. That was my feeling about them, having dealt with this for the last 8-9 years. That was my perspective on it, and so that's why I recommended the way I did.
Thank you.
Any other member from the committee?
Mr. McGinley, if I could weigh in just briefly.
Go ahead.
My recommendation for Boyer and Ritter was the fact that they were considerably less expensive. Not considerably, I'm going to say probably about $10,000 less expensive than the Baker Tilly auditors proposal. But what was unique about the Boyer and Ritter was they gave us a 4-year proposal from 2020 to 2023, and they kept the price the same at $95,500 for all 4 years, where Baker Tilly increased their price by, I think it's probably like 2 or 3%, I'm guessing, and they didn't give us 2%. Is it?
Yeah, I think that's what you'll look at.
And they didn't give us a price for 2023. So substantially, at a 2% increase, we're going to probably save about $15,000, I would guess, overall by going with Boyer and Ritter. And Boyer and Ritter does the audits for Cumberland County, which is a third-class county, and some other third-class counties as well. So I kind of leaned a little bit to them as a fresh set of eyes, as Linda said, and also a company who does, counties equally of our size. So that was my rationale for Boyer and Ritter.
Anyone else?
Mr. McGinley, it's Kendra. I can
Yeah,
wait.
go ahead. Straight up.
So my recommendation was Baker Tilly. They were first in the interview process. I feel like they interviewed really well, and part of the reason why I chose Baker Tilly, first of all, I just feel like they're so much bigger in terms of staffing and how many members they have to be appointed just to our audit. I feel like that was important. And another thing was they also have an office, fairly close. I believe there's an office in Wilkes-Barre. So I think that played a role in it as well. And like I said, I just think that, a lot of times when you're interviewing, you're toughest on the people that go first. And I feel like they set the bar very high with, what we should expect from them. And that was part of the reason that I went with Baker Tilly.
I'd just like to offer a couple of comments on my behalf. Baker Tilly came into our county in 2012. As we all know, at that point in time, we were way behind in our audits. They did a very credible job. They cleaned up a lot of different things and became aware of a lot of different issues that we had at that point, made some very strong recommendations that we have followed, and I think that has led to a more solid foundation of our financial status here in the county. Obviously, the initial audit, we did not have the audit from the previous firm until I think April of 2012, and that was the audit for 2010, I believe, at that point. Maybe 11, I'm not sure. So they really were under the gun, and they really did a great job. Many of the things that I looked at were the fact that, yes, they do have the staff. Yes, they do have the number of people on the staff who have the type of experiences that are clearly very important to do a county audit of our size. They have a very large resume of clients that they have served. You can see that on their RFP information that they provided. They do have a office here in Wilkes-Barre in our county. They do have several staff members that reside here in Wilkes-Barre and are available. I think that's a critical situation, and they work very well, I think, with our financial staff at that point in time, and I'm sure they can do that again. The other firm was a smaller firm, not as experienced in certain areas. I do think they're a quality firm, but they have some limitations based on size and some of their experiences, but they're certainly not a bad firm. And the other two firms that we didn't recommend of the four were still good firms. We just felt at that point in time that the other two were a little bit above them, and they deserved to be the recommendation versus the other two firms that were not recommended. So you have the information, you have the narrative, you have the electronic RFP information. It will be on our voting session 2 weeks hence, and we have to get moving on that because obviously whoever is the selected candidate has a lot of work to get started and set up a schedule to come in and review everything and get information and start the process. So it's important that you take time to review all that, and hopefully 2 weeks from now we'll be able to make a selection so that we can move forward. Anything else? If not, number 5 and 6 were on our work session last time. I think Ms. House asked for that information to be on the work session. I think Ms. House got disconnected maybe at the last meeting. I'm not quite sure. So it's again back here on our work session. I don't know who wants to respond to this, Mr. Pedri.
I would defer to Mr. Parsnick, but is there a specific question?
Yes, there is. Number 5, discussion regarding the timeline for online voting applications as well as paper applications. Part of that, I think Mr. Griffith asked about a little earlier.
Yeah.
The online
applications. The online, you can still obviously apply for the online mail-in ballot. We're still taking registrations until I believe October, I think it's the 17th, I want to say, or October 15th. The ballot hasn't been approved yet by the state. We're hopefully going to get that back from the state and get them in the mail late September, early October for the mail-in ballots. However, as council is well aware, there is currently a House bill that drastically changes the way mail-in ballots are handled. So I would encourage council to contact the state legislatures and discuss that with them if there are any concerns. It's currently in the Senate at this point. I've talked to both Senator John Udicek and Senator Baker about it, and I did raise the county's concerns with mail-in ballots as well. And I would encourage council to do the same before it gets to the governor's desk. Hopefully it will.
Okay. And the number 6, explanation of the delay in processing applications for mail-in ballots during the primary election.
I'm not aware. I mean, obviously I've heard of specific things, like some individuals, as I'm aware of those things. But obviously, the county did process over 40,000 mail-in ballots. We received great words of recommendation by the Luzerne County Republican Party, the Luzerne County Democratic Party, the Department of State for the work. It was the first time through. It's every single county election bureau in the entire state went through it in June in the middle of a pandemic. The first time having paper ballots, machine mandates. The first time having mail-in ballots. We're going to get better at it, and I think we made some needed changes. And hopefully, this House bill also allows for a bunch of different things. The major thing about the House bill that I'm most concerned about is I think as a country. We need to have a clear knowledge as to who won the president of the United States of America on either election night or shortly thereafter. And when I see Allegheny County getting 310,000 mail-in ballots and counting them for over a week, and Philadelphia being the same way, I'm hoping the state legislature allows the pre-canvassing process to begin earlier. And House Bill 26 does do that. It allows us to begin the pre-canvassing process under that's also always being recorded on that Saturday.
Questions for Manager Pedri?
I will keep council informed of House Bill 26. If anything comes through CCAP, it's a major issue for everybody. I would encourage council and member of the public to take a look at that one.
This is Steve Urban.
Yes.
So I participated in the Board of Elections meeting that was just last week, and very dissatisfied in any answers that they could provide, because they all appeared like they were like deer caught in a headlight. Unfortunately, I'm although it was paper and it was the first time we went through this election process, the way we went through it, very dissatisfied with any of the answers. I mean, it's like we're experimenting with the live election, as far as process, and hopefully in the future we'll get better. That's not a good answer at all. I'm very critical with elections because that's how we all came about into public office, and I don't have any confidence in the Board of Elections as it currently stands. I don't have any confidence in the office itself because of so many mistakes being made. Still can't get any clear answers on how many mistakes were made, what the over and under vote tallies were within different wards, how we mitigate an issue where we actually had a candidate who went out and petitioned, got her name on the ballot, and then nobody proofread the ballot itself for her, and she subsequently was printed on the wrong ballot, and to this day she's not able to hold the seat that she should have actually won. So there were many travesties that occurred. People getting 2 ballots in the mail, people getting the wrong party ballot in the mail. I mean, so you can pat yourself on the back all you want, but these mistakes were very close. They hit home with me. My own father got the wrong party ballot. And so you guys really need to take a look at that office and really need to shore up how you do things, the process by which you do things. And hopefully these types of mistakes don't ever occur, because you're not only inconveniencing people, but you're disenfranchising people. And you want every vote to count. But if the problem stems from that office as the point of origin, and I think the question is, what are you going to do differently to ensure that people get their ballots on time, that give them enough time to send it back and actually have it counted, especially when people take their time out. They submit their ballot application very early and then get it very late and then are unable to vote. And that's what I take issue with this county.
Okay. Anyone else?
David.
Who's that, Ms. Saban?
Yeah, I just want to reconfirm with David that when we filled out our applications for mail-in ballots during the primary, the question about do you want to continue getting mail-in ballots, we said yes. I mean, I said yes. And is is the election board going to follow that, the election office, or are they just sending ballots out to everybody?
Absolutely, Ms. Edmond. Thank you for bringing it up. That's number one of the questions we got. So of the 40,000 ballots we received back in the June election, about 36,000 of them were I want to be on the permanent list for a mail-in ballot. So that means that the 4,000 people who have already who said I don't want to be on that list will not be receiving a ballot for November. However, if you did say that I do want to be on the permanent list, you will be receiving a ballot for November. There's no need for you to take additional steps. If you have concerns about whether or not you remembered whether you did that or not, please contact the Election Bureau and they'll look it up for you. Some members of my family were saying, I don't know, I think I clicked it off. I don't know if I did or not. They called over, they got the answer, whether they did or did not. So I would encourage you as members of the public and to members of the public as well, just to make sure that that's out there. If you did say, yes, I'm permanently want to be on this list, there's no need to take additional steps. The last thing we need people to do is to send in numerous applications. And I think Mr. Shiner and other members who assisted with us, what happens is in the Shore system where people are inputting this information, and then we had so many people working on this, when you put the information in there, it goes about 4 or 5 different pages on the state system before it tells you this individual had already put in a ballot. So that's a lot of time and effort that those individuals had to put in there. So if you put in an application, it will be processed. If you have concerns about whether or not you clicked off that box for the permanent process, just contact the Election Bureau and they'll track it down for you. But there is no need, if you did do that, no need to take additional steps.
Someone else was trying to speak there?
I was, Mr. Chairman, Harry Haas.
Okay, Mr. Haas, go ahead.
Yeah, I would really like to see Mr. Urban's questions answered. It's inexcusable. We've gone now for 2 months now, and they're not being responded to. And this is undermining public confidence. A lot of people are I'm trying to put it in very diplomatic terms, but they're extremely dissatisfied and they just don't trust the system. And we all know that, this was haphazardly done from Harrisburg once again, but look, whatever it takes, we got to restore confidence in this election. I don't want to be in the news as a county. And I really want these things addressed. There's just no excuse for it. So if we could, Mr. Manager, can we just please be transparent? Can you put the needs out there that we have? Can you help come alongside our department there and right the wrongs? Like, we've got to be honest with the people. Here's where our shortcomings are. And
Mr. Haas,
like we're celebrating
Haas,
things
great
that aren't.
Go ahead. So I'm sorry.
I'm just saying we're celebrating. We're celebrating these things, and the underlying issues are just not being addressed. And please, like I said, we'd like the answers very much. It doesn't come from the elections board, then the department. Thanks.
Mr. Pedro,
listen, I appreciate it. Sure. Listen, we'll get whatever answers you need. We've provided. I thought these things were already answered by the election board. Apparently, they were not. Let me know whatever you're looking for, Mr. Urban. Send me an email. We'll track it down for you. Mr. Haas, I don't know what else I could tell you. I could tell you that 40,000 people did things the right way. We're working on these things. I'm not trying in any way, shape, or form to do this. I didn't create mail-in ballots, Mr. Haas. I didn't. We're one county that we're trying to work with. But the election board and the election bureau did their job and they did it well. So yeah, I hear the stories about people getting 2 ballots and those types of things. But but those are the few and far between. And yeah, should there be 0? There absolutely should be 0. There should be no human mistake ever, and I fully appreciate that. And that's what that goal we're trying to get to. But we understand that there have been some mistakes in the primary. We adjusted our mistakes, and we're going to move forward with that. Mr. Haas, the November election is going to be on everybody's radar. In fact, I just saw an article. Fox News named Luzerne County as one of 5 counties in the entire nation of bellwether counties that we should be looking at. So of course, Luzerne County is here. We understand the stakes that we're playing with. And Mr. Haas, we've answered the questions. And if you have concerns, or if your members have concerns, or your customers have concerns, I know Mr. Urban's friends have concerns, have them reach out to us. Because when you did do that, there were numerous members of the public who said they did a great job. I want to thank them for what they did. And that, I know that upset some county council members. They didn't want to hear that. But numerous members of the public did say this thing went really, really well in the middle of a pandemic. And listen, I'm not going to say that there were no problems. I'm saying that there were problems. But I'm saying that we got better, and we're going to fix them, and we're going to keep moving forward. I think that the election board meeting had a really good meeting the other night. We're going to work together with them. We're going to cooperate with them. I think that there's some good people who want to do some good things. Don't forget that election board had spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and days going through provisional ballots. I mean, talk about dedication as public servants. I got to give them a ton of credit. Mr. Aulette, Mr. Gould, Audrey, it wasn't Jeanette at the time. Jeanette stepped down. I apologize. I'm blanking on the fourth member's name of females.
Miss Gebhardt.
Joyce Gebhardt. Yeah, they absolutely stepped up, and they were there. So I think that the election board, I think everybody is in the same exact position. I know everybody wants to talk about these issues, but people are working extremely hard every single day, and we're getting this information out to the public. We're providing more and more information. Let's fix House Bill 26 so we know the deadlines as to where we're at. Let's get it moving. I agree with you, Mr. Haas. We're going to get better. Mr. Urban, if you want to send me those questions in an email, we'll track them down for you, and we'll go from there.
I mean, I'll be glad to resend all those questions again. There's about 15 of them. And you know, it's a travesty that we can't get some simple questions answered. And I mean, it's nice that you want to pat people on the back, but the Board of Elections actually had no clue. I don't have any confidence in them whatsoever, because I participated in their meeting. Like I said, they were pretty much like a deer caught in the headlights. Don't really understand their own role and their own election process. And quite honestly, I asked for every board member to resign because I don't believe that they're capable of doing the job that needs to be done to effectuate an open, honest, and transparent election. If you can't even count certain single votes for write-in process, we have a problem. If we can't, you know, we're getting sued because people don't have their vote counted. That's a problem. And what are you doing? I mean, we haven't heard any answers on it as far as getting those issues remedied. How did you remedy those situations? What is the complaint process? I asked for a form from Attorney Butera, you know, for a complaint form. What is our complaint process within the county? Because if somebody can't even submit a complaint, of course, we're not getting any complaints. I mean, I had a problem for almost 4 to 6 weeks to try to submit a complaint through the Department of State's website that needed everything exactly perfect in order for me to proceed to the complaint page. I submitted a complaint, have yet to get a response from either the DA or the Board of Elections on my complaint. I have yet to hear anything about the complaint that I sent in. So, you know, you can pat yourself on the back all you want, and the staff. I mean, I'm glad. You know, I understand that they were overworked and maybe overwhelmed. I mean, part of it was your own fault for sending out those mail-in ballot applications as the county manager. You shouldn't have done that. But, you know, leave that up to the parties. But the primary is where you select, or at least the party selects their candidates to go forward in the fall. The fall is going to be easier because those ballots at that point, the ballots consolidated based on the winners of the primary. So the primary is an extremely important election, you know. Next year, we're going to have local races. And if we have the same screw ups that we had this year, you know, that may impact a lot more races because we can't count single votes or single write-ins. And, you know, I talked to a former council candidate who wrote himself in for state rep, and his vote wasn't counted either. It's the same issue with one of the individuals who sued us. So, and then these aren't just friends. These are people that we know in the community that put their name on the ballot, wrote their names in, and they weren't counted and they weren't official because they didn't get the vote. So I don't know how you guys count votes, who looked at them, and how they were registered because they obviously didn't get a vote. You know, I mean, you have the ability to vote for yourself in any public office, and that expectation is that vote, whether it's 1 or 2 votes, should be counted at the end of the night and should be part of the official count process. Now, they're not challenging it at this point, but at least one person did, but the rest did not. You know, but some people wanted to see the actual ballots themselves just to find out where that vote went, and they were denied that right. You know, we should be an open and transparent government, especially when it comes to our election process. You know, we've never had these problems until now.
There were never
I
any.
asked you, I mean, how many votes
What are you
were not
talking
were not
about? Sorry.
I didn't mean to talk over everybody myself, but you know, I asked weeks and weeks ago how many votes were not accepted. You know, that was an easy one too. It was days and days and days that the board was examining votes, seeing which ones were accepted and which ones were thrown out for whatever reason. That should be a very cut and dry answer, easy to obtain. Now, I wasn't able to attend the meeting like Mr. Urban did, but again, it's these very simple questions so we can get better. And if we need needs, like if we need people to man the voting booths on election day, you know, how are we doing with that? Here we are, we're just a couple months out at this point. So if we can get ahead of the problem and make sure we don't repeat some of the past mistakes, I'm all about it. And I do want us to succeed. And I don't want to hear any complaints from anybody. That's the end goal.
I mean, one of the biggest complaints.
I think I'll wait till everybody's done. Then you guys can, because you guys keep, you want to keep. I apologize. You guys.
No, I'm done.
I think everybody's had a chance now to voice their thoughts and opinions. Mr. Pedri, do you have anything you want to summarize?
No, listen, send me an email, Mr. Urban. If your friends or colleagues or whoever they are have an issue, have them reach out to me. I can't speak for the election board. I'm not on the election board. I'm not the attorney for his election board or anything along those lines. But if there's information we can provide to you, we're gonna do it. Listen, and there's going to be issues. There's never going to be an absolutely perfect election. But in the middle of a pandemic, to come across the June election, yeah, the election bureau did a great job. And guess what? That's not me patting myself on the back. That's the state patting the county on the back, and the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So that's nothing to do with me. I'm just there to try to assist where I possibly can. Those individuals did the hard work, and they should get the credit for it. And I apologize if you guys had to have some issues. If they haven't been answered by our team, I'll track it down for you. Send it over to me. We have nothing but transparency here. Let's get it done. Come see if you would have came see the process of how we open up the mail-in ballots, you would have seen transparency. If you would have came and seen the election board review every single provisional ballot, 1,000 of them, you would have seen transparency. So listen, I thank you for your input. I want to continue to work with you. Let me know the issues and we'll track it down. Have a great.
Okay.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Pedri, are we going to definitely be using our new voting machines in the general election is my first question, and definitely going back to our regular polling places? Is that absolutely positively going to happen?
We did use the voting machines in the primary election. We used the scanners. We didn't use the ballot marking devices. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm talking about the whole concept. The voting ballot marking device, the ballot reader, the whole concept.
Correct. Okay, so in the primary election, we utilized the ballot readers, and we did not use the ballot marking devices. We will be using the ballot marking devices for the November election, and we will be going back to the original polling places. Now, there will be a list coming out by the end of the month that says which polling places have rejected us. Because there are some polling places such as elderly high rises and some other places that have told us maybe we don't want you there. If that's the case, then we need to make a determination. But last time we consolidated 144 polling places down to 58, I think it was. This time we won't be doing that. We're going to be utilizing the smaller places unless that place specifically tells us they don't want us there.
Okay, now, and the other question that I have for you is, when is the training going to start for the poll workers? That's one of the questions. The second question is, if we already have the boxes checked of 36,000 people that want a ballot in November, are the envelopes already created and all they have to do is put the ballot inside them? Or are we going to wait until the last minute to try to do all of that as well?
No, I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer on when the training exactly is. I think it's in a week or two, and the answer is no.
And these are the questions that Mr. Hawes has, I have, and Steve have, and the residents have. And this is why we end up behind the 8 ball when it's 2 weeks before the election and our hair's on fire trying to figure out what we're going to do to get everything accomplished. And that's what gives us no confidence in the director of elections at the Bureau. Is this stuff should be done already.
There's no need to get personal, Mr. Griffin.
I'm not getting personal. I'm telling you that this should be done by now. I'm
Excuse me.
telling you, it should be done by
And
now.
I'm telling you that the director of elections did a phenomenal job and got 40,000 mail-in ballots in the middle of a pandemic, Mr.
Okay.
Griffin. I'm
And
sorry.
I disagree.
I'm sorry.
I
Mr.
disagree.
Pedri,
And,
excuse
but-
me.
I disagree.
Okay.
And not only do I disagree, a lot of residents disagree.
Okay. Thank you. I think we've had enough for elections right now. Obviously, Mr. Pedri made a statement there. If you have issues that you would like him to track down, please send him that information. Number 7, Mr. McDermott, resolution authorizing the county manager to execute a sale of property-owned property to John and Catherine Wega. Ms. McDermott, you want to comment on that?
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
This is Romualda Crocamo.
Yeah.
I can speak to that unless Councilwoman McDermott wants to speak to it.
Okay.
That's fine. I had a hard time getting off mute, so I do appreciate the
Okay.
help.
Okay.
But go ahead. You could say it's the recommendation of the real estate committee to have council vote on this and hopefully be able to sell it and get it on the tax rolls. But Romualda, if you have any more detailed information or maybe can answer questions.
Well, this husband and wife put in a bid for a property that is adjacent to their property. If council remembers, they allowed the Wegas to post this and put notice in the paper. They did that. We provided as much information as we were able to obtain. If council wants any additional information between now and 2 weeks from now, we'll be happy to provide that.
And am I correct in saying this follows the guidelines that we have? We're selling a property out of the repository?
Currently.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, the next item is for information purposes. Mr. Griffith has been asking about the codification. We now have an RFP, and the clerk of the county council will be the lead person on that per the charter. And that RFP information will be going out very shortly. And then hopefully the process will get started and we'll get it accomplished.
Mr. McGinley.
Yeah. Yes.
I would like the office of law to write up a resolution of reprimand for the manager for the conduct that he just displayed for the next voting session, please.
I think
you lack of courtesy and respect.
Okay.
Lack of courtesy and respect.
I just got cut off 14 times. I'm
Okay.
in the middle of my presentation.
Mr. Pedri.
And Mr.
Pedri, please.
Mr. Griffith, I apologize if you feel I lack of courtesy. It's my fault. I apologize, and I shouldn't have raised my voice regarding that. Apologize.
Okay. Mr. Haas, we'll put your request for the exit interview on our executive session for 2 weeks hence. Okay. Mr. Haas, did you hear? Are you muted?
No, I said thanks, but again, I did put out there, I copied the whole council too. And
yeah.
It should
So
be done this week.
2 weeks
Again, time is of the essence.
Okay. Just a point of information, I will be sending out this week information regarding budget hearings, schedule. As you well know, by October 15th, the manager must submit the budget, and then becomes the process for the council. So we will be having multiple meetings beginning right after the submission of the draft budget. We'll be meeting just about weekly. There may be a conflict with a holiday or the night of elections, but we will be sending that out this week. So you can look at that, and if you have any issues or questions about it, we can certainly look at some revisions prior to finalizing that. Okay. Public comment. Members of the
Mr.
public?
Manta.
Mr. Manta, go ahead, Mr. Manta.
Okay, I don't want to throw any salt in the wounds, but I believe I can testify as a person that's very dissatisfied with the with the Election Bureau. If I could kindly have a few extra minutes to explain the
You have 3
situation
minutes,
that
Mr.
happened to
Manta. I
me.
think we've already covered a
All
lot
right.
of that, but
So-
you certainly are allowed your commentary. Go ahead.
Okay. I went to the Election Bureau and I was not allowed in the building. Then I called the Bureau, and the Bureau, nobody answered the phone. And then I spoke to one of the council members, and they gave me another phone number, and I got in touch with them. And I mailed in my change of party, because I'm ashamed of the Democrat Party. I mailed in a change of party and still didn't receive anything back from them. And I did a write-in vote up at the Lehman High School, and my vote was not counted. So I detest what Mr. Pedri said, because of the fact that I'm a citizen and my vote wasn't counted, and I had a write-in vote. And nobody told me that, oh, well, where's your vote? Well, it was one of the other council members that looked at the Bureau, and they said, well, you didn't get changed from a Democrat to a Republican, and you must be still a Democrat, so your vote wasn't counted. 35 years in the Army, and my vote was not counted in Luzerne County, so there's something wrong with the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other members of the public, please.
Mr.
Yes,
Knapp?
Mr. Knapp first, please. Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Chairman McGinley. This is in respect to our democracy, and it's nothing to be fooled around with. The voting process, we cannot be messing around with the bedrock of our American foundation. It's not a process that can be redone or do-overs when it comes to November 3rd. People who run for office place their livelihoods on the line with regards to the cost of running for office. The only reason I can figure the mistakes would be encouraged is to place time into no resolution or to botch the election process. This is being advanced across our government with all kinds of examples, and this conversation taking more than an hour is proof of the waste involved. It's a deliberate action to cause all kinds of confusion, which it should not be so. The only positive thing I've overheard is the electronic voting machines will be available to display and put into action before the day of election, so the people have an idea of what they're going to be facing. This is something that has to be presented as the most ideal means of voting for our nation's direction. It's important everybody understand. This is so important, and I think that there is an active cause behind what is transpiring. It's a deliberate advance to botch the election process. And our nation and its foundation is at stake. Now, as for the discussion that Councilman Walter Griffith brought up about the voting machines and them being displayed in the courthouse, and the people using that venue to try the machines. It's a perfect example of, it's like pulling the wool over the citizens of Luzerne County's eyes. I brought up earlier before in my request as to why in-person council meetings aren't happening. If they can bring people into the courthouse to visually see how the voting machines work, congregating people, there should be no reason why a venue shouldn't be put in place for the people to come together and govern together as far as the county council meetings are concerned. I 100% concur with Councilman Harry Haas, with Councilman Urban Jr. There has to be resolution before November 3rd, or is it a deliberate act that there isn't a resolution? Thank you for your time.
Other members of the public, there was somebody else who was trying to get on.
Mr. McGinley, it's Mark Rabo.
Go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did not hear the majority of the discussion about the, I was engaged in another matter, but I wanted to give my 2 cents on this for the election. At the election board hearing or meeting, I asked the Solicitor Crocomo about the registration as far as campaign finance for committees, political committees. And I wanted to ask, as far as a complaint goes, with regards to if a complaint should be filed against the candidate or the committee, and how to go about going, with that process, what that process would entail. I asked Solicitor Butera about it, and, he was like, I guess the election office, I don't know if they lost the complaint that I put in, or if it's, they don't know what to do with it. I didn't get any answer back, so I was hoping that maybe there would be a clarification on that end as far as how that complaint, and any complaint for that matter, if there's with regard to the elections or campaign finance, would be handled. That's my one question. My second question would be, as far as with the stormwater issue, I remember the discussions, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you do, as far as with the stormwater, with regards to the foundation with the that is propagating the stormwater fee for the states that surround the bay to push for the stormwater fee. It shouldn't be Luzerne County that foots the majority of the bill, nor should the counties. It should be the state that foots the bill, because the state signed agreements, plural, in good faith with the Bay Foundation. So it is the state's responsibility, not the counties, and CCAP even concurs with what I asked as far as should it be the state that goes at this foundation in terms of finding out the assessment for the cost of cleaning up the bay and maintaining the cleanup of the Chesapeake Bay. So I would hope that the legislative committee for the county would talk with our state and federal legislators upcoming sooner rather than later, because DEP is the one who's pushing this, not the federal EPA, because the federal EPA, is said in their directive that they're not telling the states, the individual states, how to charge for the cleanup costs. They're leaving it up to the individual states. So DEP should be the one giving guidance to the counties as far as how to further proceed with the calculation on coming up with a fair amount for the charge. I think it should be the state that charges it. So those are my 2 questions, and I hope that I can get an answer to them. Thank you.
Yes. Other members of the public, please.
Brian Shiner.
Go ahead, Mr. Shiner.
Election day is fast approaching. I encourage everyone in the county to vote. If you're not registered, you have until October 19th to register to process. Please, only fill out one application. You'll probably be receiving many from different sources, but the workers at the Election Bureau have to process each and every application, whether it's a duplicate or not, until we find out at the very end that it is indeed a duplicate. So if you know you filled out a mail-in application for one organization, don't send it in multiple times. And also, I have who wish to remain anonymous. Pedri has been denied access to the county's envelope supply until November 4th. Thank you.
Any other members of the public?
Mr. McGinley, Jason Carr from Sailorsburg,
Go ahead,
Pennsylvania.
Mr. Carr.
Oh, thank you so much for letting me speak. Mr. McGinley, at last week's election board meeting, it was of concern that when I asked the director of the election bureau the qualifications that she had to run the department, she refused to answer or articulate what her qualifications were. And listening to Mr. Urban and Mr. Haas tonight, it probably makes some sense now. As well, when I came home tonight, I found in my mailbox a series of emails and text message chains anonymously sent to me by who, I don't know who, by who, but regarding the former Board of Elections chairman who has since resigned. And it looks like he had great consternation around the Luzerne County manager interfering in the decisions that the board was supposed to be making. And I guess as I've been on this meeting, I've been looking through the emails and trying to decipher them and what they were trying to get at. And essentially, it looks as if the county manager was looking to usurp the authority of the board during the primary election process. And what I would like to ask you, Mr. Chairman, is to ensure that the manager of Luzerne County maintains his role autonomous from the Board of Elections. And please let them do their job. And please allow the citizens of Luzerne County to have a fair election. I will, if need be, begin the process of deciphering and posting these emails to show what is actually happening in Luzerne County. There needs to be a fair election, and please let that happen. Thank you.
Okay. Other members of the public? Hearing none? We have a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Chris.
Chris? And who was second there?
Kendra.
Second it, Kendra.
Ms. Moore. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any in opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. Motion carries.
Oh.
Mr. Mapp? Mr. Mapp? Can you hear me? Mr. Mapp?
I'm trying to unmute.
Now I got you there. I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me?
You know a
Very
young
good.
man, William Mapp, I think, years ago. Is that a relation?
Okay. I'm not sure. I do have a sister that lives in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia in particular,
No,
but I
this is
am
a
not
man I
sure.
think I had at school at one point, back several years ago. So he probably closer to middle age now when I say young man than a young student age person.
Yes, probably younger than I.
Well, I'm not sure of your
I
age.
had a question, but thank Walter Griffith for answering it. I wanted to know if you had a codified date by which your county manager had to submit your budget, and he gave me that date as October 15th. Is there a particular date by which you launch your budget hearings following that submission?
That's the schedule that I mentioned, Mr. Mapp, and I'll be sending it out to council for their review before I send it out for public.
Very well.
I'll be out shortly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Meetings are very interesting.
Thank you. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we don't have too much of a jump in the virus after our Labor Day festivities. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.